Hey there, my gorgeous friends on the internet, and welcome to my basement. In today's episode, we are gonna create amazing 3D with scroll-based animations, Apple-like websites, quality. Check this out. How cool is that? So we're gonna take a look into that. I'm gonna show you the whole process from beginning to the end of how you can create an effect like this. So we're gonna do the whole process of making it in Blender, and then we can do the code as well. And it's also gonna be linked in GitHub if you wanna skip the first part and you just wanna do the coding. That's all here. So without further ado, let's get into it. But first, there is a huge sale on developedbyed.com. If you're interested in learning more about design and coding, check out these courses down below and apply the coupon code BF40. That gives you 40% off on all the courses that I have on the website. So when you apply the coupon code BF40, check this out. Boom. That's pretty good. And I also want to say that all the courses on the website right now and future courses that are going to be released, they're going to be updated starting next year. So I'm going to start off the list with HTML and build them all the way up and just redo all the courses from scratch. So if you already bought the course, you're going to benefit from the update for free. If you have not yet bought it, then you're gonna get both versions and the newer version of the course. So feel free to get them, and thank you so much for all the support. Okay, so let's get going. So you're probably wondering how this is done, and your first thought might be, oh, it's using something like Three.js, which is a 3D animation library for WebGL. And that's a good shout, but it's not. And you're gonna see lots of companies, like big companies like Apple, don't do Three.js either, because if you use something like Blender or Maya or whatever, you get to render out a more photorealistic image, and then you can take those pictures, images, and just paint them on a canvas, on a WebGL canvas, and it's just gonna look much, much better than Three.js. Now, you can still use Three.js if you're interested in making it very interactive. So if you want to click on the 3D element and that opens up, or it's like a game, then sure, use Three.js. But you just have much more flexibility when it's pictures or a video, because you can render out realistic lighting and you have loads of other flexibility. Pretty much anything that you can do in a 3D software, you can put on the screen here. So yeah, let's get going. So what do we need to do? Well, first thing we need to do is open up Blender. If you've never used Blender, don't worry. I'll try to explain everything as best as I can. So download blender.org, go to blender.org, download the file, download the program, and open it up, and you should be presented by this. So I am gonna activate something here so you can see what keys I'm pressing all the time. So at the bottom here of the screen, as you can see, if I hold the middle mouse down, you can see what I'm doing. And that's one of the first things. How do we navigate this damn program? Well, the middle mouse is gonna spin us around, so you have rotation. And space is not gonna do anything. If you press space, it's just gonna run this timeline. But if you wanna actually grab and pan over, you need to hold down Shift and the middle mouse. All right, so that's how you kind of navigate around. And then scroll to zoom in. All right, so mess around with that a bit, get comfortable, pretty cool. And the left side here, you have tools, kind of like in Photoshop. Right side here are layers, and here are like properties for different things that we're gonna use. All right, so yeah, we're gonna do it one by one. First of all, let's delete this cube. So find it. If you cannot find it, you're having a hard time moving around or you lost it. If you have it clicked on, so click on it, you can press the dot, all right, the number pad dot, and it's gonna zoom in on it magically like that. Cool. Okay, so if we press X or delete, hit delete, it's gone. Really cool. So what I want to do is have a plane, all right? So to do that, we can do Shift A, all right? And with Shift A, you can add an object, you can add a light, you can add text, whatever you want in your 3D fantasy. In this case, a plane. That's my 3D fantasy. So there it is, we have a plane. Now I want to make this much, much bigger. So I can hit S, and that's gonna scale it down. So now if I just move my mouse over, up and down, I can hit click, and there we go, we have a large plane. All right. Now, so we learned that S can be used for scaling. By the way, if I want to cancel out of this, I can just hit the right click and that's going to just reset it. All right. So left click to apply and then right click to disable. All right, so S for scale, G is for movement. All right, so if I want to move this left, if I want to move this right, whatever. I'm not going to move it. We're going to leave it like that. This is just for you to know. Now, I can also move it along the axis here. So the Y, X, and Z. I can hit G and then Y, and that's going to move it only on the Y. G, Z, only on the Z. You can also do G and then hold the middle mouse button down, and you can kind of snap it to the angles like that. So mess around with that a bit. And that's kind of the controls that you use to create 3D, really. So what I want to do now is kind of make a backdrop. So I want to lift up like these two edges here. So to actually edit this object, I can hit tab, and that's going to go into edit mode. And I can just grab these 2 points here if I kind of just drag like that. And what I can do is press E, and that's going to extrude, basically create a new mesh up here. And then I can just lock it to the Z axis, okay? I can use the mouse or hit Z, and then just drag it up, something like that. It doesn't need to be perfect. If you don't like it, you can hit G again, and then just kind of drag it down and up, and position it the way you like it. There we go, cool. So that's our backdrop. All right. So what we want to do now is I want to add a little bevel to this here, so it's not as sharp like that. So to do that, we can go down here to these wonderful buttons we can go to the wrench here, and we have a button called modifier. So these are really cool stuff. I'm not gonna go really in detail about what they do for this episode, but I mean, if you guys want to see more Blender stuff, let me know. We can do bevel, which does exactly that. It finds the sharp corner of this and it's gonna bevel it. And here for segments, I can just up this like to 10, and the amount, I'm just gonna lift it up like that. Cool. All right, so it's like a nice backdrop now. Lovely. But as you can see, the way the light hits it, it's quite obvious that you can see these segments. So what we generally do in 3D is right click and then hit shade smooth, and that's gonna hide that perfectly. All right, it's just basically how the light plays on those edges. All right, that's what shade smooth does. If you want to get more of a polygon type look, I'm just gonna make a UV sphere here. As you can see, that's kind of quite polygony. But if we hit shade smooth, as you can see, it's much harder to tell. Anyway, so we have our plane there, which is cool. And now what I want to do is make the ball. So how do we make the ball? Well, same, Shift A, and let's go down to UV sphere, and there it is. So what I'm going to do is just, oh, here's a cool tip. If you want to position this perfectly here, up here, you can hold down the tilde key, and this is going to give you like a camera view, like which angle do you want to view it from. So let's say I want to do front. Let's say I want to do back. I can do right. All right. That's the way you can do it. So it looks like it's on right now. But we could like rotate this around if we wanted it to. So I can do minus RZ. Let's do minus 90. I'm actually just typing that in like that. And now if we go to front view, there we go. That makes more sense. So click RZ minus 90. All right. And there you go. Or you can hit RZ and then holding control down, it snaps to an angle. So that's pretty cool. Okay, anyway, so let's get to front view. We'll grab this ball and hit G, and just move it up here. We're gonna hit S to scale it down. So let's bring it something like that. And then shade smooth to make it nice and soft like that. Perfect. So that's all good. What we need to do now is create the little tunnel for us. So for this one, we are gonna go over to curves, and I'm gonna click on path. So let's click on path, and I'm gonna hit G. Let's go into front view again, G, and just move it up, let's say here. Okay, so as you can see, it's just a line. So how do we actually make a shape out of this? That's the question. Well, we can go here down to the object data properties, click on this sucker, and we can open up this geometry here, and then we can increase the depth. And look at that. That is pretty cool. So let's make this quite thick. Let's do maybe 70-ish or something like that, 0.72. Yeah, let's just leave it like this for now and position our camera just so we can see kind of like a final image of like what measurements we want. So camera. Okay, how do we manage this camera thingy? Well, if you hit numpad 0 on your keyboard, it's gonna go into camera mode. So this is what your camera sees now. So if you go up here and I render out the image, well, that's my image, all right? That's the final output, but it's not positioned nicely. So what we can do is hit N on your keyboard, and then as you can see, you have your location, rotation, and scale here. So technically you can kind of just move this around like that, but that's kind of hard to navigate, right? So what we can do is just go here to view and do camera to view. So if I enable this check mark, now I can just normally move around with my middle mouse and like that, right? It makes it much easier to position the camera any way I want. All right, so let's kind of set it like that. And what I'm gonna do is actually make this a bit bigger. So I'm gonna click on the backdrop, S, and let's do X and just make it wider like that. All right, cool. And maybe a bit taller, SZ, sorry. Something like that. That looks pretty good to me. Okay, so let's just kind of get it in the position, like up there, something like that. All right, it doesn't need to be perfect. Now, what I also want to do is on the camera, let's select the camera. Let's click on the layers up here, kind of position it the way we want. And the rotation, I want to reset here. So for Y, I want this to be 0. For Z, I want this to be 0. And my X is going to be 90. All right, so it's perfectly looking straight ahead. All right, kind of giving this 2D look to it. And then for the Z, I'm just going to slowly bring this down just so it's in view like that. And then I'm going to go to view and disable the camera. So as you can see, since it's positioned 90 degrees, it's perfectly looking straight at it like that. All right, so now since that's disabled, anytime I want to jump back, I can hit 0. And there we go, I can see my camera view. And I can just leave that like that. So now I know my ball is going to be somewhere up here like that. It's going to be the starting position. And this one, I'm going to hit G. And let's rotate it like that. Okay, cool. You can also do R, RY 90 if you type in, but it doesn't matter too much. All right, let's go into top view. So holding tilde down, let's look at the top view. And where is my thingy? I cannot see it. Yeah, it's right there, but it's hard to see because they're the same color. So let's just go out of it and kind of see if it would fit in. And it looks like it would, which is great. Are we happy with the size? Yeah, we are quite happy. Maybe this ball can be a bit bigger, like that. That's cool. And let's bring this a tad bit down. Okay, cool. Now what I want to do is increase the segments of this because it looks quite rough around the edges, doesn't it? So let's go back here to our object data properties and the resolution. Let's scale this up to something quite big, like 24. So it looks really smooth along the edges. All right, really cool. So now here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna make this nice and long, and that sounds wrong, but it's okay. We're gonna hit tab, which is gonna put us in edit mode. Cool, so now, as you can see, there's lines there, so I can just grab these. I'm gonna grab the end position and I can just hit G And hitting G allows me to kind of move it around wherever I want to. So I'm gonna just click here maybe, and then I'm gonna hit E, which again extrudes and makes a new one, and just kind of mess around and rotate around and try to make a cool little shape like that. Just keep hitting E. All right, something like that. E again. You can go into camera mode to see what you're making here. And if you don't like the way this is positioned, just grab it, and with G, you can move it again. So let's move that maybe something like that. And that goes like here. E again. Okay, you get the point. Just make a really interesting shape like that. Now maybe you want to grab multiple points. What you can do is enable this proportional editing up here. Now if I grab with G, as you can see, there's a circle there. And if I increase the size, it's going to affect the other points around it too. So if I move it all the way up like that, see, it moves all of them. So that's a pretty cool thing you can do and experiment with. But I'm just going to make it something simple like this. You're going to have like the one I made previously rendered out there for you. So yeah, there we go. That's what we have. So now what we want to do is look at it in rendered mode. How does this actually look? Well, if we go here to render properties and we switch this over to cycles, and then we click on this button up here called viewport shading, that's going to show us a realistic render of our scene. Now here for the device, switch it over to GPU compute, and that's going to make it much faster for you to render this out. So again, like this is like realistic, like how the light bounces off of this model and the reflections and everything. Whereas in 3JS, you're probably going to see something more like Eevee, where it's like a game render, which is okay, but Cycles is going to give you a more realistic scene. I think WebGL's API is not even, maybe even worse than Eevee, but anyway, we're going to use Cycles because Cycles looks great. All right, cool. So that's what we have right now. We can turn this off for now, because what we want to focus on is making this ball fall through all the way down here. All right, so how do we do that? Well, let's start off with our timeline. So down here at the bottom, as you can see, we have a timeline. Let's restrict this to 180 frames. So I'm just going to drag this end position down here, or you can just type it in down here. So 1 to 180, that's how long I want my animation to be. Now what we want to do is add physics to the ball, to this, and to the backdrop. So let's start off with the ball. So click on the ball, and then we'll go here to this physics properties, and then we're going to click on rigid body. Cool. Hit space. Amazing. It falls through, but it's not colliding with anything, which is fine. So let's rewind it all the way back to the beginning. And we're going to keep everything pretty much intact here. And now we're going to go to this one. And as you can see, oh, wait, we cannot add the rigid body to this. Why? Well, because it's a curve, so we need to actually turn this into a mesh. So if we right click on it, go to convert it to a mesh. All right, so now we can add physics to this. So click on rigid body and hit play. Oh, both of them fall at the same time. That's not what we want. So to change that, we can hit the rigid body here from type active to passive. So what that means is it's still gonna collide with stuff and it's gonna have the physics. It's not gonna be affected by gravity. So now when we play this, it just kind of stops there at the top. And the reason why it does that is by default, it does this convex hull shape. And I think it just only puts physics on the outside. It doesn't recognize the inside of the shape. So what we can do is just switch it over to mesh here. All right, and that's gonna add the physics on the inside as well. So now if we hit space, It goes true. Does it actually fall down? It did. That's pretty cool. If you want to actually see what's going on, you can hit this wireframe mode here. And we can just do that and then hit space and you can see the ball going right through. Cool. Amazing. Now you can do other stuff if you want to make this a bit bouncier or you want less friction. You can go here and modify these. So for the ball, I do want it to have quite a bit of bounciness, and the friction should be lower. So I just move that down a bit. There we go. And that's gonna feel more like a ball. Cool. And now the same thing I want to do to, let's go back here to solid view. Let's grab this shape, this background, and add a rigid body. Again, we're gonna switch it over to passive, lower the friction, and increase the bounciness as well. So let's hit space. Now, why do I need to add bounciness to this? Well, it's kind of like, well, if you have a ball, right? It depends what the ball's hitting as well, right? The ball can be bouncy, but if it's hitting carpet versus hard wood, it's gonna have a different bounciness level to it. So you need to add it to that as well. So let's hit space and it should be pretty good now. There you go. If you want to add a bit more friction, let's lower that. And hopefully we get a bit more movement there. That'd be nice. I'm just rewinding and clicking space. All right, that's pretty good. That's not too shabby. Okay, cool. So now if we go back to front view, that's our final scene. But everything is still white and it doesn't look good. So what can we do? Well, let's add some materials to make this look a bit more realistic. So click on the ball and we can go here down to the material panels and click new. And let's name this ball here. All right. And we can add a color to it if we want to. So let's do something like like an orange color. There we go. Now, if you cannot see the color, that's fine. That's because we're in solid view mode here, right? If you want to see kind of the shapes and everything and what's going on the inside, you can have this wireframe mode to actually see all the vertices that make up the shape. Then this one, and then you have material view, which actually shows you the materials you also apply to the shapes. So there we go, red. Or you can also do the final rendered view, and that's going to give you like the actual thing that you're going to export. But anyway, we're just going to add some red to this. And down here, let's make it a bit more shiny. So you can decrease the roughness here. That's going to add quite a bit of shine to the scene. All right, if you want to add metallic look to it, you can increase that. I'm going to keep that at 0 and just decrease the roughness here a bit. Okay, what about this one? This needs to look like glass, right? So let's go to the realistic shape view here. This doesn't look like glass now, does it? Okay, so for this one, if I create a new material here and just name it glass, right? I mean, that's not gonna make it look like glass. No matter if I change the metallic view and whatnot, that's just not gonna work. So for this one, we're gonna need to do a little something special. So just follow along here. We're gonna go to shading view here. All right. Let's switch over to the realistic render here. And you have these nodes. Now I'm not gonna go too in depth, but let's just grab this principled BSDF node and just get rid of it. And I'm gonna hit Shift A, and we're gonna search for glass BSDF like that. All right, and then just take this node here, hold down and put it in the surface. And look at that, that's gonna give you a nice glassy look. Now the IOR is gonna be 145 here, 1.45, and then we can increase the roughness a little bit. Now let me just hit play and see. If you like the way this looks, perfect, power to you. If you want to add a bit of fuzziness inside of it, you can increase the roughness like that. And I kind of like the way that looks, to be honest. Just like 0.35-ish or something like that. I think that looks pretty cool. And that's it. We have our glass finished. We can go back here to the modeling. Let's go back here and look at the finished render. I don't see the thingy, so let's go to animation. Actually, this is a pretty good view here. Let's switch over to the rendered view. And Yeah, that looks pretty good to me. Now you can add the background color if you want to as well. Give it a shot, add a new material, and let me know if you like the way it looks. Let's keep this one white for this one. Okay, I'm gonna close this view. I don't want to actually. Just ignore me for a second. Okay, cool. Let me make this a bit smaller because we're gonna do something with the timeline here very soon. All right, so what else I wanna do now is go into camera mode. I basically wanna follow this ball all the way down there. So how do we do that? Let's go back to 0 here and select the camera in the layers, and I'm gonna hit I and do location. All right, that's gonna put a keyframe with the current camera location. Now we can go all the way down here to the end. Let's say, let me just hit space and watch this go. Okay, cool. And once it falls right as it hits here, 93, I want to move this all the way down. So what we can do, I'm gonna hit N here to open up the properties, make sure you're on camera again, and the Z, I'm gonna move down all the way, let's say there. I'm happy with that. All right, cool. And then I'm gonna hit I again. Actually, what we can also do is zoom in on this if we want. So I can hit I. Actually, let's just do it like that. Let's just do Z. All right, all the way down here, maybe to 90. So let's go down to 90. And then I'm gonna hit I and location. All right, so let's take a look. And that's pretty cool. And once it falls down here, let's see at 100, I'm gonna hit I again, location. All right, so that shouldn't really do anything. But now from here to 120, I'm gonna zoom in, maybe something like that, and move it a bit further down like that. And maybe a bit to that side as well as my final shot. I and hit location again. All right, and there we go. That's our scene, done. Really cool. Boom. And then I can put the text here, I know, in code. But yeah, that's it. That's pretty much it. And then you have a light here, which you can move around and position any way you like. Again, you can do top view and just move it around like that. Maybe here, maybe there. You can Shift D and put another one on if you want and just come up with something creative. You can lower the strength of this here in the panel. If you click on the light bulb, I'm gonna get rid of this one. You can also add a bit of color to it if you want, a bit of orange. Yeah, feel free to experiment with this as much as you want. Maybe you can put it closer there. That looks pretty cool. Maybe it's a bit too red. I kind of like this look here. It looks quite nice and clean. But yeah, what else I did was on the ball, I made it glow a little bit. So what's that about? Let me click on the ball here. And I think around like somewhere here, when it hits this portion, like frame 25, in the material panel, there's this thing called emission. So if I turn this on, as you can see, the actual ball becomes the light source. And I can change the emission strength here to make it more intense, like 15. And I can add a color to it as well, so like orange. And as you can see, it actually affects the scene here, which is pretty cool. So what we can do is basically put this to 0, and then I can put a keyframe here, and then on frame 30, I can just bump it up to something like 5, and then click on this keyframe again, and let's say it goes all the way to frame 60, click, and then on frame 70, bring it back to 0. All right, let's see how that looks. Wow. See, you can have a little bit of fun to it. Now that might be a bit too intense, but you get what I mean. Well, the ball looks actually quite nice there, the light. Let's increase the strength of it a bit. Increase the size. If you increase the size of the shadow, of the light bulb, it's gonna soften the shadows as well. So something like that. That looks pretty good. Anyway, that's it. That's pretty much our whole scene in Blender. So now to actually export it, what we can do is go here to the output format, output properties. The frame rate here, I don't think it matters actually, because we're gonna export PNGs or JPEGs. Let's put 30 anyway. I wanna render out 1 to 180 and just pick a folder here. Go here and make a new folder. And then I'll just pick my, I don't know, my documents here and hit accept. And here, what we wanna do, let's do JPEGs for this one. Color, RGB, and quality is gonna be 100%. All right, and then resolution here, 1920 by 1080 is a good start. I think I rendered it out a bit bigger just for it to look a bit sharper. And that's it for there. And then here for the output, what we want to do is, what was it? Render properties, my apologies. Here at the render section, we want to increase the max samples to something like 512. That's going to give you a pretty good result. And make sure the noise denoiser is activated as well. You can leave the default on, that's fine. And that should be it. You can also add a bit of contrast to it here at the bottom with color management. So you can switch from filmic to standard. And then you can add maybe something like a look here that's high contrast, and that looks quite cool. All right, and that's it. And then you go up here to render and render animation and just enjoy and watch this render out. Okay, so after you rendered everything out, you should be left with something like this. A bunch of images that are exported like that. And they're gonna be named 0001, 0002, blah, blah, blah. Now, what we want to do is rename this to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, blah, 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 without the zeros here in front. If you know any good program to do that, let me know. I tried it with Photoshop and Adobe Bridge, and it failed. It goes up to 10, but then it just duplicates it again. Anyway, so I manually went over and did this. I know, crazy. But do that. If you know another better method, then good for you, but I didn't. So anyway, so I did that, and I did it to all the balls, and I was left with this. All right, and this is 161 like that, and perfect. All right, so high quality, all of them nice and rendered out. Furthermore, if you want to optimize these, use, I don't know what programs are there to kind of bring the file size down, because it's like 900 kilobytes per image. But yeah, if you use, what's the bare one called? Tiny PNG, you can bring these down to like 50 kilobytes and optimize it even further, but it's fine, whatever, it's good. So let's go back to our VS Code here. So to actually get this working, let's make a new folder. Let's go here and go to learning, new 3D ball, let's call it like that. Again, there's a GitHub repo up for you guys to see, so that's all fine and dandy. All right, I'm gonna get the best balls in here. There we go, cool. So it's all formatted like that. Nice. Next up, we're gonna do an index.html. We're gonna generate a new document here, and I'm gonna import let's do our style.css, app.js. All right, let's link all of these up here. And down here, we're gonna do script with the source of app./app.js. Okay, now we're gonna need 2 plugins for this. One of them is gonna be gsap. So let's do gsap CDN. And we're going to use this to just animate the individual frames. So gsap min, copy that over right above here. And then we are going to use scroll trigger. So copy scroll trigger. This is going to be used to actually animate based on scroll. So we're gonna put this at the bottom of this and hit save. Amazing. All right, so that's all of our scripts ready to go. So now the actual HTML that we have here is just gonna be a canvas. So canvas, I'll give it a class of canvas. All right, and then we're gonna have a h2 maybe here with a class of ball text or something that's gonna say ballsy design. And that's pretty much it, okay? So yeah, we're gonna use a canvas because it's gonna do a much better job at rendering out these images rather than changing the image's source and updating this to the new image every time. That's gonna be really slow and really bad. Okay, so let's open this up, click on live server, and that's what we have. Fantastic. Let's head over to here to our style.css, and I'm just gonna add some basic ones here. We're gonna remove the margin on everything, the padding on everything. We're gonna do a box sizing of border box. All right, we're gonna grab the body. I'm gonna add an, oh, damn, something fell on the ground, no. I'm gonna show you this later, actually. Let's just keep it like that. I'm gonna grab the canvas and just make sure it's full width and full height. So we can do 100 VW, which is viewport width. All right, so the whole screen, available screen, and the whole available height. Take it all up and suck it. That's a bit too much. I apologize. Yeah, that's it. And then we're gonna have our ball text, and I'm just gonna say display none for now because I don't want us to see it, because we don't care about it for now. So let's get rid of it. Okay, so what are we left with? Nothing, absolutely nothing, which is fine. So we're gonna do everything in JavaScript. Pretty cool. So first of all, what we wanna do is grab this canvas. So we're gonna set it equal to document query selector, and we're gonna say dot canvas because that's the class we added. There it is. All right, so we have the canvas. Now what we want to make sure is that our canvas width is gonna be the same size as our screen width. Now I know we added it in CSS, but we're gonna add it here as well. So we're gonna say canvas dot width is equal to window dot inner width. And canvas.height is equal to window.inner height. And that's it. Next up, what we're gonna do is get the context. Set that equal to canvas.getContext. And we're gonna say 2D here because context can also be 3D if you're working with 3D models. But in this case, we just have images, which is technically 2D. Next up, I'm gonna define my frame count. How many frames do I have here? I think I only have 179 because I deleted one by accident, so I'm just gonna say 179. But if you have 180, then do 180. All right, next up, I'm gonna define a function that's gonna tell us which frame we are on. All right, so it's gonna be called current frame, and this is just gonna be a arrow function like that that's gonna take an index, a number. And this current frame thingy is just gonna point us to each of these files. All right, so it's gonna be backticks here. It's gonna be / and the folder name called best ball dash slash, sorry, $ curly brackets, and I'm gonna say index +1 dot to, sorry, in here dot, where is it? Where am I doing this? Let me see. Let me wrap this in parentheses like that. Dot to string like that. Okay? And at the end here, I'm gonna say dot JPEG or whatever file format you have. In this case, JPEG. All right, so this is gonna look into best ball folder. And once it looks in the best ball folder, it's gonna increment one by one and go through all of these images and add the .jpeg extension as well to it. All right, but we're never looping over this, so let's loop over it. I'm going to create another variable called images, which is just going to be an empty array. And then I'm going to say for let I equal 0, I is smaller than frame count, I plus plus, like that. Okay, so here's our frame count. So we define a I that's 0, and if it's smaller than frame count, which it is because we start off at 0, we're going to increment it 1 by 1. All right, so now what I can do is create a new image here. Say new image, and the image source is going to be current frame. All right, we're going to run this arrow function I, right, because this I keeps increasing. So this I is this index. This is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 best ball for JPEG. All right. And then finally, I'm going to say images.push in this new image. All right. So we're basically populating this images array with all of our images. If I console log out images, you're going to see, and if I look in the inspector, that we have an array with all the damn images. Lovely. That's really cool. Okay, so what are we going to do now? Well, I'm going to create a render function for WebGL to render out these images. So I'm going to say function render. And what this is going to take in is context.clear rect, like that. And what this function does is it literally just clears out the canvas for you, deletes everything that's on it, because we want to delete it and then paint something different on it. So it's going to be 0, 0, which represents the position where you want to start. So top left corner there. And then the canvas width and the canvas height. All right. That's how you clear out the entire canvas. And then what we're going to do is say context draw image on the canvas. And we're going to pass in images and the frame we're on. Now, let's make another variable up here, maybe somewhere. And I'm just going to say let ball is equal to frame 0, like that. Okay, cool. So now here in the images, I'm going to pass in ball.frame, like that. Because this frame here, this is the actual thing that we're going to animate. All right. And then here we're going to say 0 and 0 for the position as well. Okay, a bit confusing, I know, but it's okay. Let's see if this works. We're going to say images 0 on load. So when this loads up, run this render function. So what this render function is going to do is going to clear out the canvas, and it's going to draw images 0, right? Because ball.frame is 0. So images 0. Draw it on the screen, and here it is. Yes, so it did it. So since I have this let ball here with the frame 0, I can animate it. So what we can do is let's go up. Let's do it here. We're gonna say gsap 2. I'm gonna grab this ball that I just made here, and I can just increase the number of this on scroll. So I can say curly brackets, and I can say frame. I can actually grab like the frame value here, which is 0, and I can say frame count minus 1. All right, so 179 minus 1, 178, because arrays are going to start counting from 0, so it's going to be 1 less. All right, so that's it. And then snap, we're going to say frame here, and ease is gonna be none. So what this is gonna do is it's gonna snap to each individual number. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, because you can do it like 1.5, 1.8, 1.9. All right. So the actual way it increments, we want to make sure it's always like 1, 2, 3, like whole integers. So we're gonna snap it to frame, And then here we're going to define scroll trigger like that. And we are going to define scrub and set that to true, which basically says, make sure to animate these frame counts based on scroll. And then pin is gonna literally hold this image here until the animation finishes. So what I mean by that is if I have something down here, something different, hey, let's do h2 hello. I'm gonna just multiply this across. See, I can scroll. But what the pinning does is it keeps it here until the animation finishes. So if I do pin and I want to pin the canvas, check this out. See, I'm scrolling and it stays on this frame. Yeah, so that's what it does. And how much I want this to last. I'm going to put like 500 seconds. So 500, basically 5 times the size of the screen. All right, so I can scroll quite a bit to keep running this animation. And as you can see, after that duration finishes, it's gonna let me scroll all the way down here. If you want to see what's going on, you can also enable markers and set that to true, and then you can actually visually see where it starts. So start, and then when I reach the end here, it's gonna unpin it. Anyway, good stuff, good stuff. So that's all the logic, and then what I want to do is on update here is run this render function, and that's gonna be everything. So if I start scrolling now, take a look at that. Boom, done. How cool is that? Really nice, really simple. Now, one more thing I want to do is get rid of this scroll bar here on the right side. It's quite annoying, so we can go here and just grab the body and say overflow X hidden. I don't want the Y because that's gonna disable the scroll bar, but there we go. That's pretty nice. So that's done. What else do we want to do? Let's say we want to animate that ball, the text here. So let's get rid of that text. And I'm just gonna add a little bit of styling here. Position fixed, and I'm gonna position it like that. I just like the way that looks. So if we take a look, it's right there. So when it goes down, maybe I actually don't like the position of that. Maybe it should be more up here. So let's do bottom 60. Does that look better? Yeah, something like that. That's pretty good. Okay, cool. So now that I have that on there, what I can do is go back to app.js here, and I can do another gsap. So gsap from 2 this time I'm gonna do. I want to grab the ball text, and I want it from opacity of 0 to opacity of 1. And that's it. Let's hit save. I'm gonna add another com actually here. I'm gonna say scroll trigger and just open up a new object here. Scrub is gonna be true. In the start position, let's say I want it like 50% down the animation, and end is gonna be like 60%. So it's just a small little window it has. So let me go down, 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 and like 50% through this animation, it's gonna start appearing. Cool. And then it fades out. And see, that's what scrub does, is look at that. It actually interpolates the values of the scroll and it fades it in. Whereas if I don't have scrub, as soon as it hits the 50% mark, it's just gonna fully fade in. See? Whereas with scrub, it's based on scroll. Okay, cool. Now what I can do is when this animation completes, so let's say on complete, when this is done, then maybe gsap to ball text, opacity to 0. All right, just get rid of it. So when we're down here and we're scrolling further down, so boop, 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 and then we go down to next pages, which you cannot see now because we cannot really scroll that much down. So I'm just gonna copy over this little div that I made down here. It's just the details with a h1. And I just added some height to this, like that, if you want to copy this over. All right, just the height, display flex, and centered it. So now I can scroll down, and there it is. Now it doesn't fade out. It should fade out when the animation is complete. So this is kind of the problem, right? You don't want to have this kind of just sticking there. I mean, you could if you want to, but it's not something I prefer. Damn it, go back to the code. So something's wrong here. This onComplete I don't think is running at all. So let's take a look, console, and doop. And it looks like the opacity is still 1. So let's do console log here and see what's going on. Console log done. Let's see if this runs. Yeah, it runs. Okay, so then something else is wrong. Don't worry about the scaling of this. We'll fix it. Okay. Let's see what the problem is, guys. gsap 2, ball text, opacity 0. That looks good to me. Okay, I see it fading out a bit sooner. So let me put some markers on it so I can tell what's going on. Markers true. Okay, there we go. So it starts, start here. Okay, fades in. And when it hits the end, it just doesn't fade out. That is really weird. Okay, what am I messing up here? From to opacity 0 to opacity 1. Scrub, true, start 50 and 60. Let me change this to 1. Is that gonna do anything to it? No, technically it shouldn't. I don't get it. I don't see it. Incomplete is not spelled correctly. Is that it? Damn it. That was it. It wasn't spelled correctly. Okay, cool. Very cool. Okay, I can remove the markers now. Hit save. Super cool. All right, so everything's looking quite good, isn't it? Now, check this out. Let's see if I remove the canvas width and canvas height. See, you're gonna get this problem. So that's not good. So make sure you add it back here. Now, what if we resize? Well, that doesn't look too good, does it? Yeah, that's not too good. So what we need to do is go here to our style.css. And what I want to do is on the canvas, add an object fit of cover. All right. And that's going to get rid of all that stretching issue, as you can see. So now it looks pretty good, no matter what size this is. All right, cool. Now I saw problems with this. See, when I refresh it, it goes like that, which is not correct anymore. So it's quite a bit strange to get this resizing properly working. But I found a solution, which is go into app.js. And here in our render function, what we can do is always make sure that our canvas has the same size as the image, and then it kind of just, everything works fine. So what we can say is context.canvas.width is always the same size as the image's width, and context.canvas.height is always the same size as the image's height. And that seems to fix like all the weird issues with the sizing. When I resize, refresh, it always is consistent, which is perfect, which is what we want even on smaller displays. Now you can scale this text down as well for mobile, but it should work perfectly fine on mobile. And that's our little effect. Hope you enjoyed it. You are going to find the code pen up online. And yeah, this was a pretty fun video to make. So have fun. Let me know if you want to see more Blender stuff. And yeah, really excited. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.